Misogynoir, a term coined by Moya Bailey, is anti-black misogyny. Misogynoir brings about a comparison where white women represent good women and black women represent bad women. During the Victorian era, white women had to be pure, private, and submissive to fit into the cult of domesticity. Myths of Jezebel and Mammy, of over-sexualized and sexless black women, are both in contrast to the proper Victorian white lady. Both of these concepts have followed through to this day, but are perpetuated in more insidious ways. Black women today are held to different standards than white women in the media. Respectability politics are a series of norms or guidelines that racialized groups are meant to follow to fit into, quote, respectable or white society. For example, black women who embrace their sexuality are seen by white feminists as bad influences, insisting that they should dress more respectably to garner respect. Meanwhile, black social movements feel that by buying into respectability politics, the black women are perpetuating white supremacy by trying to imitate the ways in which white women act.
Michelle Obama has been the subject of feminist criticism based around respectability politics, referring to her as a feminist nightmare for calling herself the mom-in-chief and focusing on what are perceived as safe and domestic issues, such as her Let's Move campaign working to combat childhood obesity. It has been argued that she plays down the fact that she has a law degree in place of gardening and being a mother. Melissa Harris Perry, however, argues that Michelle Obama fights against the mammy myth, stating, "When she calls herself mom-in-chief, she is saying that her daughters are the most important thing to her. Instead of agreeing that the public sphere is more important than Sasha and Malia, she buried Mammy and embraced being a mom on her own terms." Beyoncé has also been criticized for perpetuating the nuclear family version of respectability with her husband and child. She came under scrutiny for calling her most recent tour the Mrs. Carter Tour in reference to her husband Jay-Z.
I took some time to live my life, but don't think I'm just his little wife.
But in Beyoncé's feminism, she takes on her right to be a wife and mother while still holding on to her sexuality. She has been incredibly clear about her identity as a feminist, displaying the word behind her in lights at the VMAs, in what was arguably one of the most visible shows of support for feminism by anyone in recent pop culture. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Nicki Minaj is seen as perpetuating the Jezebel myth. When Minaj wears revealing clothing, she is viewed as being too sexual and inappropriate, but she instead embraces her sexuality and is constantly cited as proclaiming that it is, quote, not here for you.
You're not gonna tell me who I am. I'm gonna tell you who I am. If you like it, let's roll. If you don't, deuces.
In her most recent music video for her song Anaconda, she is seen giving rapper Drake a lap dance. As he reaches out to touch her, however, she smacks his hand away, and in doing so, reclaims the male gaze as her own.
Singer Janelle Monáe's escape from respectability manifests itself entirely differently. Known for her signature style, suits, Monáe has said, quote, "When I started my musical career, I was a maid. I used to clean houses. My mother was a proud janitor, my stepfather worked at the post office, and my mother was a trash man. They all wore uniforms. And that's why I stand here today in my black and white and I wear my uniform to honor them." Monáe was recently in the news for responding to a fan who tweeted at her, telling her to stop wearing suits and to, quote, "stop being so soulful and be sexy." Monáe later responded saying, quote, "Sit down, I'm not for milk consumption," to which the man replied with an apology. This man's comments can be easily traced back to the idea that black women's bodies are seen merely as entertainment for others, viewed as promiscuous and sexual objects. Monáe shows again and again that she refuses to be put into a box. Actress Viola Davis became more of a widely known celebrity in 2011 after starring in The Help. However, Davis really became a household name following the premiere of How to Get Away with Murder, in which she plays criminal law professor Annalise Keating. In an interview with the New York Times, Davis said that this role was a welcome change in comparison to some of her other roles, in which the characters she played were, quote, "mammyish and downtrodden." Davis really made headlines following an episode of How to Get Away with Murder about a scene of Davis's own idea, where her character is seen getting ready for bed and takes off her wig and makeup, revealing her natural self. Francesca Ramsey, who said that the scene made a huge impact on her, put it best in her article for Upworthy, saying, quote, "These days there are very few black women on TV wearing their natural hair. There's a long, complicated history of black women being told by society that their natural hair is unprofessional, ugly, distracting, and a whole host of other insults. This scene, along with the character of Annalise Keating and other characters like her, are so important when it comes to representation. These characters show not only the world, but black girls and women in particular, that there are black women in powerful positions, and that they too can grow up to achieve those same positions. But it's not just celebrities who are creating the necessary visibility for young black women. The internet creates a platform that is available to mass numbers of people from a vast variety of backgrounds and allows instant posting without having to break into any sort of industry. A recent event on Tumblr and Twitter using the hashtag #BlackoutDay was a perfect example of the importance the internet currently plays in activism. On March 6, 2015, this event consisted of black people of all genders posting selfies on both social media sites in an attempt to overrun both sites with these images to combat the, quote, European standard of beauty and to show black beauty. This event was hugely successful, and as the vast majority of Tumblr users are women, was a huge opportunity to combat the erasure of black women's visibility and the acceptance of black beauty across all genders. The internet allows for voices of traditionally erased groups to make themselves heard and visible on a much larger and continuous scale because the internet is available to nearly everyone with a computer or smartphone and exists 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Twitter alone has created so many viral campaigns for groups that would not be otherwise visible, from hashtag #BlackoutDay and hashtag #BlackLivesMatter to hashtag #YesAllWomen, hashtag #WhyIStayed, hashtag #WhyWeCan'tWait, and of course, hashtag #BlackGirlsMatter.
If you are colorblind and don't see race, that means that you don't see who I am. Thus, you don't see the challenges or the obstacles that I face as a black woman or as a person of color. And I need you to see those things in order to help me fight for equality.
Black women and girls in the media are incredibly important and give role models for young girls and young women alike that have previously not been represented as complex in mainstream media.
Visibility is key to representation, and in this day and age, that often means being online. Taking part in online visibility and supporting black women and girls online is the first step in creating movements for the silenced. Black girls and women experience the world in a way that cannot be understood without listening to what they have to say.